Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with a promised video. And the promised video concerns these. These are the books you've seen me using when I'm doing gel printing or painting or doing stuff, and I use them to actually clean my brayer off on, or I think I saw one there. I cleared a texture mat off. I just clean my brushes off on them, and I just wanted to show you how I prep a book for these, and then if you wait till the end, I'll flip through the pages I've already done with these, and then in a future video I'll actually use them and show them. So anyway, as you know, I like to give credit where credit is due. So I first saw this done by Darcy Sanders on Darcy's Mrs. Ventures in Mixed Media, and Darcy in her video had said that she'd been inspired by someone else. So I dropped Darcy a text and said, Darcy, who was the originator, or how far back in the chain can we go? So, so I was inspired by Darcy Sanders. Darcy Sanders was inspired by Gail Augustinelli. Gail Augustinelli was inspired by Rachel at Roxy Creations. Now, all of those YouTube channels I will try and put in the description box below. So if you look below where the wording is, there may be the word more, M-O-R-E in bold font. Tap on that and open it. I'll put the links in there to those channels that I've actually mentioned. Now, the original idea was that, let's grab a book. Rachel had a book that had no cover on it, and she literally had, the bit I remember seeing anyway, she had markers, and she came in, she did mark making all the way through the pages, so that then later on she can use them for collage. That's what I remember. I'm not sure what Gail did, because I can't remember when I saw Gail's. I watch Gail's videos every day, but to be honest with you, I watched quite a few videos every day and it didn't sink in. As far as Darcy was concerned, Darcy came through and she kept hers. Sorry, so Rachel did hers without the book cover. I don't know what Gail did. Darcy kept hers with the book cover and literally went page by page. She'd smear paint, she'd put ink on, she'd paint stuff, she'd scrape palette knives on, then she'd go back and then she'd mark make and stuff like that, which is where I got inspired to do this, because I've got quite a few of these hanging around. I call them a book block. They're this part of a book. Now, the reason I have those hanging around is very often I will buy a book in a thrift or a charity store because I want the cover. And even if I don't want the whole cover, maybe I want the front and back covers and then bind it, because buying this thickness of card can be expensive. Whereas the two books I've got here, let's take those out of the way. These two books was £1 in my charity shop. So if you say it's about 50 or 60 cents in America, so I can't buy the good quality card that I would use for covers for that price. So I buy them, and then a lot of people will use these pages to glue upon if they're gluing stuff to stick to other things. I've done that in the past, but I tend to use my spare magazines, which I've already harvested, to do that, because I don't want to throw stuff away if I can use it. So what do I look for in one of these books? I was putting these back in, I just realised to take them out. So this one is a book of Welsh heroes in sport. Now I look for books that are not going to be of a sexual nature, racist, homophobic. I don't want any swear words in there. I try to look for books that are not going to be something that, if there's a bit of text showing through the painting that I'm doing, I don't want it to be any danger that it could insult anyone. So I go for like what I call generic type books, like this is Welsh sporting heroes. I very much doubt there's going to be anything bad in there. This is the Complete Book of Fortune, which I think is like fortune telling and stuff like that. There's symbols and things in here and writing bits. But let's get to that one in a moment. So if I pick up one of these books, I know I am not going to be using the photographs to paint upon. So the first thing I could do is I can just take those out, and if there's any fun pictures, like that's a fun picture, even that and that, I will cut them out, put them in my ephemera box, and if I need them for something, I'll use them. Like, that's a really good historical picture. I would save the pictures I can. Granted, they're shiny. I could always put matte gel medium over the top. So that's the first of them. Now, as I said, this one, The Complete Book of Fortune, it looks a bit old, to be honest, because of the colouring. I don't necessarily look for coloured pages. What I do look for is I look for a page that's reasonably robust, and I don't want a page that's shiny in any way, because then half the time I'm trying to cover up shiny. So I try to get just regular matte pages. This one doesn't have photographs, but it does have things like this in it, like all of these type of things. And what this means is if I am spreading paint on them, these sort of things will show through if I'm using a transparent, and that actually adds interest in the background other than just text, like even a table there. So you get what I mean. So look at them. I would steer clear of recipe books, because recipe books usually have lots of pictures of food in, and because by nature they're used in a kitchen, which is going to have moisture in it, you'll find that the pages are shiny. Anything like a fashion or an interior book is going to have shiny pages. Anything like a novel for reading is not going to have shiny pages in it. Okay, so we've got that far. So what I need to do now, and you've seen me do it before, is I need to take, I call this the book block. I want to take it out of the middle. And I don't think you can see there, you might be able to see light through there, can you? Yes, you can. You want to cut it down here. I'm trying not to damage the edge in any way, and the cover in any way, because I can use this, I can use these covers, I could use this as entirety if I wanted. Now, several different ways. You can take a sharp knife, open the book up. Now, raw adults, be careful with a sharp knife. And I just slowly work my way down, all the way down. If I've got a sharp knife, I'm hardly likely to injure anything. So there you go. So I've taken that out. That means that this one now is almost completely free. I can quite easily come in and just run a knife along here. Always being slightly careful that I don't cut too close. Now, if I've got to cut this closer when I make a journal, that's not difficult, because I can just come in and use the scissors without damaging that. So this goes into my drawer of covers. Now, when I look at these here, books normally have what I call fly pages or intro pages. So you can see all of these pages have nothing on them. I don't know why there's so many without anything on them. I don't know. That's down to the printer to decide. So I usually come through and I take these pages out. I think there's two there. There feels like there's two there anyway. And I'll even take this one out. Will I take that one? No. So I've got all of these now that I can use to back journal cards, journal tags. I can make neutral backgrounds with them. They go into my drawer with all of the papers for things like when I make a masterboard. I will coat the back with plain paper, because it could be they're going to be cut up for journal tags, could be cut up for journal cards, anything like that that may need writing on. So those will go into my stash of those. Now, when it comes to this, I'll deal with this in a second. I just want to show you the alternative ways than a blade. Now, it depends on how precious you are about the cover. I like this cover. It's in relatively good condition. In fact, this book feels almost new. It doesn't really feel like it. It's probably an unwanted present. However, we've still got this gap, and it's a bit tight here, as in the gap. I will sometimes use a seam ripper. Use a good seam ripper. Now, with a seam ripper, do not put the point into the spine. Put the bead, that bead, into the spine. And you should be able to push it and work your way up. Now, a seam ripper is not meant for cutting paper, okay? So you're going to have to work it a little bit as you go along, because, as I said, it's cutting through stuff it's not meant to cut through. It's supposed to cut thread. When I get so far, I can come in from the other end. If I get the bead thing in there. And work my way down from this end. If I do happen to cut this, it doesn't bother me. I can repair it. I would probably put something over the top anyway, around the spine anyway, if it was a journal, just to finish it off. But as you can see, I've done that with the seam ripper. Not the easiest way to do it, but it can be done. Once you've done this, whichever version you're using, you can quite easily come in with the scissors, because as you can see, there's a reasonably good gap there. I'm not going to injure anything. I can just come in with the scissors, and as long as I'm lining the scissors up with the spine of the book, there's a good chance I won't cut the cover itself. Although I'm not overly worried in this one, because I'm not going to keep that, I'll keep this. So there is that way of doing it as well. I'll go this way. So I'm just going to put the knife down it, because you're not here for a lecture on how to take a book block out. So that gives me another cover. Oh, I did nick it slightly, and there. But that's fine. As I said, if this was going to be made into something, I wouldn't want that showing anyway. So once I stitched a signature in, I'd probably wrap lace or fabric around that. So that gives me a second cover for my journal making. So again, looking at this, I can look at this now. I'll keep this. This can go into my paper scraps. I'm not sure that I've got grey. Here we are. We've got one of those pages again that I can use. Let's take that off there, because that's more useful paper. So then what I've got here is I've got this, which is the binding tape, or the binding. I sometimes pull off as much as I can, because it just builds up and gets in the way. But it's unnecessary, because as you tear pages out, you'll find you can take this out anyway. Now, when it comes to the older books, that's my bin gone, there you go. The older books, they sometimes have like this paper edge on it. If you can take that off, don't throw it away. I like to keep this because I use it in my mixed media stuff. Like, that's a really nice textural piece. I know you're all going, Ceri, really? Yes, Ceri, really. If I tear this and put this down side of a vintage tag, it gives it interest. So I always look for things like that. There you go. And I don't even mind if it's got that on it. That's interesting to me as well. Things like this. I know you're all going, good grief, how much are you keeping? I keep what I need to keep. Now, when it comes to the books themselves, this one I know that I'm going to have to come in, and I'm just going to tear the book down, because now all the spine and that's off it. I'm not going to have that much of a problem. You could go in with a knife or a scissors, or if you've got a really strong guillotine, which I do not, because what I want to do is I want to free up these pictures from in here. Oh, the sun's come out. From here, and take the pictures out. These will go into my fussy cutting box, and I'll deal with those later. And now these two are prepared, ready to be used. Again, on this one, now I found, this is where I slightly deviated from what Darcy did. Darcy kept all of hers in the cover in the book, and I was finding when I'm gel printing or I'm painting or stuff, I was finding, because if I put paint on here, then I turned to put paint on here, these two pages stuck together. So what I did is I took my one book and I split it. I'd say probably split this one into thirds. Let's see if I give this a bit of a pull. So it'll pull right apart. I'm not worried about damaging stuff, because what I'm planning, what's a good piece? What I'm planning on making with these are pages for collage, which I'll show you in a second. So now I have a stack of these all ready to go, and I'll just add them to my existing stack, which is here. So as I'm doing things, say, okay, say I've got paint on this one, I can just put this on the floor behind me, or put it on the table by the side, because I've got another one. And then, so because I do quite large gel printing and painting sessions, I will just keep all of these on the go. This will keep me going for a couple of years, guys. It seriously will. Now, what do I do and what's the process? So I tend to, as I'm painting or as I'm gel printing, I'll clear my brayer off. That looks like a brayer off. This looks like it was a brush, so I must have cleaned a brush off on here. Again, that looks like a brush. That looks like it's scraped. I might have actually scraped that with a scraper. Here you go, I've started. I must have had a bit of, that's the draw liner stuff I used to stamp with. This must have been a palette knife I used. Again, that's a brayer, that's a brayer. But you can see what I mean. Oh, there you go. That was just scraping. I could even have put the gel plate on there in. No, there you go. That looks like it might have been a 5x7 gel plate. I just put down, let the ink, let the paint, and lifted it off. So what I do is, as I go along, there's one in there I just saw that's quite cute. So see, that was probably from a couple of different sessions. That looks like it was a brayer off, but this bit is definitely a palette knife. And then I pressed into it a mark making tool just to lift some of it out. And what I do is I leave them in here until they're ready to go, and then I tear them out and put them into a box, which I'll show you in a minute. But if I've got several of these on the go, let's just go back to the 3 that I'm working with. So say I've got these near me and I'm doing mark making. Say I'm stamping with a foam stamp and I've stamped black acrylic paint onto the project. I've always got spare paint. So I'll just use the same stamp or mark making tool and I'll just mark make on these until I've used up all my spare paint and my stamp is dry, stamp is stamped off on them. I'll also use things like the mesh, I'll use texture mats, I'll use whatever I've got. I will just save the spare paint onto these. So you've got the idea with that. Now, what does that get me? Well, I've got this box now that actually fits quite nicely into a cubbyhole I've got. So this is sort of where I throw painty papers. So these are painty papers that I made, a long time ago when I was making envelopes. This is a piece from one of those books, as you can see. That was another thing I need to tell you. I personally only work on the right-hand page. I leave this page as it was. And I do that specifically because then I've got this surface, which is a paper-based surface, to glue to my collage. Because if I've got a painty surface I'm trying to glue to my collage, it may not glue as well, but the paper does. Also, it means I don't have to make a decision as to which page I like best. Everyone has just a normal book page back to it. So this must have been a piece I've already used. So let's have a quick flick through of the pages that once they're at the point where I go, ooh, that's ready, I'll tear it out of the book. I usually go through the trimmer and just trim off the torn edge. And then these become collage, and you will see these in the future because I've got a few new journal projects coming up where I'm going to be using papers like this. So let's have a quick look at what's come out. And when you reckon all of this is just spare, or what I would call waste paint. It's stuff that I would not have had any use for. I really love that one. This was just how I had thick paint. I just dragged a paintbrush handle through it. But there you go. As you can see, I had my Poscas out and I just decided to doodle something on this. So all of these, and I don't mind if it tears when I take it out of the book because I'm going to tear it for use anyway. There you go. So now I could use these as the inside. Say I had a journal, and you know when you have a journal and you've made a journal, usually you have to cover this page. Well, depending on the size of this, I could then glue that in place there. And if I've got 2 of them, then that gives me a paper for the inside. What am I doing? Putting that in the wrong place. So hopefully it gives you some ideas. I really love this system. You know, I also brayer off onto sticky labels as well, and do similar process to these as I do on the sticky labels, although I now have an entire box full of sticky labels and I'm not using up the sticky labels as fast as I'm generating them, whereas this is good because it's giving me more stuff for collage in the future or for using on ephemera. Or say I'm sending some happy mail out or I'm doing a swap or someone, I might actually put, I love this page. I do love this page. I might throw a couple of extra pages in, do you know what I mean? And send these out like, that's basic. That was obviously a paintbrush. I just went like this to clean off the paintbrush. Cleaning up my bubble wrap. I must have been cleaning up bubble wrap a lot here. Okay, bits left over. That was a foam stamp. I think that's Netted Circles by PM Artist Studio. But as you can see, even stencil, this was a stencil cleanup. So I put the stencil down and wiped over the top and got that through it. Again, that's a stamp. That's Darcy's Wallflowers, I feel. Now, this is quite thick, so I would say this was scraped with a palette knife before I did anything else. Bubble wrap, bits and pieces. as you can see, whatever I'm using at the time, I have left some that are pattern free, because when you're doing collage or you're creating, sometimes you need a place for the eye to rest. Or if I'm doing a project where I need something that has a specific, so let's see, say I'm creating a piece that's about botanicals, but all I've got is bubble wrap. If I've got these, I can then stamp onto them with acrylic paint and like put maybe florals, or I can put fauna onto here, insects, things like that. So it's always good to keep stuff like this. So I could even come in and cut this into pieces and actually use them as label backs. So the only thing I would say is when you're stamping ink onto an acrylic painted background, remember it's going to take a lot longer to dry, because the acrylic base under the ink is not going to suck that paint down. It's not going to absorb that paint. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you like that. That kind of was something I've been promising to explain all the way through July, and life has got in the way. But as you can see, I now have enough to keep myself going forever. There's also another thing I've contemplated doing that I haven't yet done, because I'm enjoying doing those as much, is say you had something this big, or even if you split this down further, you could make a whole load of these without tearing them out, and actually just send that to another crafter as a gift. So then they've got some unique painty papers for collage as well that you've created. I think it's a lovely thing to do, and I might do that in the future. So guys, I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time, goodbye now.